Jacen was halfway up the ladder stairway that led finally to the command chamber when he realized that the escape vessel had parted with the world-ship Citadel. Jacen kept climbing. On reaching the last few high-risered stairs, he leapt through the well and landed in a defensive crouch on the deck of the vessel's immense bridge. Shimra's familiar stood opposite him, his disfigured body listed to one side, his twisted hands waving commands at the throbbing control console. Jaina hung between them, suspended a meter above the deck by horns of Yorick coral that protruded from the inner bulkhead, surrounded by intricately rendered religious statues. Jaina touched Jacen through the Force, her voice little more than a whisper, but clear enough for him to grasp that the shamed one's name was Anamy. He was observing Jacen from across the bridge, even while guiding the vessel through the tattered sky. Willing it through the tattered sky, Jacen realized. Directing it the way a Yamask might. "You will find no integrity in me, Jedi," Onimi said in Basic, as if mimicking something Vergere had told Jacen when he was in the embrace of pain. "Trust that everything you perceive about me is a lie." Jacen realized the truth. Anamy had overseen the warriors in the throne room below. Anamy, not the Duryam, had been responsible for the quakes that had nearly toppled the Citadel. "Shimra with Shimra," Anamy said, anticipating Jacen's next thought. "I am I, the Supreme Overlord," Jacen said. As the realization deepened, he recognized that his Vong sense was allowing him to see Anamy in a profound way. Anamy was open to him, and in an instant, Jacen understood how the Shamed One, a former Shaper, had attained such power. But even Anamy didn't understand that through his experiments, he had also found a way to reverse the damage that had been done in the distant past to the Yuuzhan Vong. He had regained the Force. "Vergere told Nomanor that you are the most dangerous Jedi of all," Anamy said, "and well you should be, since you carry Yuuzhan within you, the betrayer of all I have sought to create. But soon, when I have killed you, you will be my passage to godhood." Jacen experienced a moment of insight. He could see Anamy through the Force. Was it possible that he would be able to find Seacot through his Vong sense? Again he reached out, touching Seacot this time, and the astonishing truth struck him like lightning. Why hadn't he seen it earlier? But there was no time to dwell on it. Anamy sent a blur of objects racing for Jacen, beginning with the carved idols that flanked Jaina. Cloaked Yun Harla, many-armed Yun Yamka, thousand-eyed Yun Shuno, and the rest. But Jacen stood firm. Not wanting to risk hurting Jaina inadvertently by deflecting the objects, he pulled everything into a whirling cloud as if in orbit around him. Jacen's steadfast defense infuriated Anamy. He flew at Jacen with hands upraised and mouth ajar. Jacen lifted his hands in defense, and he and Anamy met with blinding discharges of electrical energy that entangled both of them in a flashing web. Their hands interlocked. They whirled from one side of the bridge to the other in a kind of mad pirouette, caroming off the coarse bulkheads and smooth instrumentation. Jaina sent her twin what reinforcement she could summon, but he told her to conserve her strength. The transmutated secretions from Anamy's palms and fingertips sent hallucinogens through Jacen's skin and capillaries and coursing through his bloodstream. Anamy's paralyzing fangs struck repeatedly for Jacen's temples and neck. Poison wafted on his forced sighs and rode within the droplets of his frothing saliva. But the Jacen that the Supreme Overlord had in his talon grip was not there. Where once Jacen had been unable to find Anamy through the Force, now it was Anamy who couldn't find Jacen. A being of light, Jacen was drawing into himself all of Anamy's lethal compounds, neutralizing them and casting them out as sweat, tears, and exhalations. He understood at last why he had failed to catch Anakin's lightsaber when Luke had tossed it to him. He was never meant to catch it, because he had become the lightsaber. He had attained the ability to cut through any resistance in himself, to sever the bonds of preconception, to open a gaping hole into a reality more expansive than any he had ever dared imagine, to heal. For a moment, all the cosmic tumblers had clicked into place, and light and dark sides became something he could balance within himself, without having to remain on one side or the other. The consciousness that was Jacen Solo was strewn across the vast spectrum of life energy. He had passed beyond choice and consequence, good and evil, light and dark, life and death. All that had been required of Jacen was complete surrender, a technique once mastered by the Jedi Order, but at some point misplaced, transposed to an emphasis on individual achievement, which had opened a way to arrogance. In that the path was available to any who chose to seek and follow it, Jacen understood that the discovery was really a rediscovery. Indeed, the Yuuzhan Vong had adhered to it when they had lived in symbiosis with Yuuzhan Tar. In that dim proto-historical time, they had been group-minded, living in a world where the boundaries between self and other were permeable. By cutting that bond, they had isolated themselves from the Force. They had deluded themselves into thinking that they were worshipping life, when in fact, they were worshipping the only route to symbiosis left open to them, which was death. Jacen realized that, in a sense, he had paraphrased Anamy. He had passed beyond the tradition of the Jedi Order into a more embracing reality. But instead of attempting to steal the authority of the gods or to become a god, he had finally allowed himself to merge with the Force in its entirety and become a conduit for its raw power, which flowed through him like the thundering headwaters of a great river. Gradually, Anamy began to understand as well. He grasped that Jacen wasn't defending himself so much as using Anamy's own strengths against him. Jacen was fighting without fighting, drawing Anamy deeper into the struggle by demanding more of Anamy's indigenous toxins, to the point that he couldn't keep up. Anamy fought with everything that remained in him, but Jacen could not be overwhelmed. As a pure conduit of the Force, he was incapable of taking missteps or making wrong moves. He stood not at the edge of the tilting ecliptic of his vision, but at the center, as a fulcrum. The weight that would disturb the balance was Anamy, but to Jacen, that weight was no longer of sufficient mass to make a difference. The Force encased Jacen like a whirlwind, moving deep into the darkness the Yuuzhan Vong had brought to the galaxy, and gathering it and sending it up the spout into the funnel cloud, where it was transformed and dispersed. Anamy was becoming more insubstantial by the moment. Jacen continued to stand firm, righting the world. He had become so powerful as to be dangerous to his own galaxy, for he could see clearly the temptations of the dark side and the desire to force one's will on others, to so completely dominate that all life would kowtow to him. He purged his mind of all pride and evil intent and entered a moment of unadulterated bliss, where he seemed to have unlocked the very secrets of existence. He knew that he would never again be able to reach this exalted state, and at once that he would spend the rest of his life trying.